Good morning. This is KELOLAND on the go with all you need to know in news and weather as you start your Sunday. We also have your Boredom Busters coming up, but first, our top story. Sioux Falls celebrated the 35th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act last night with a downtown festival. People were treated to live music and food during the city's first ADA festival at Levitt at the Falls. The event helped honor disability rights, and for many, the festival had a very special meaning.
It's very personal to me because my uncle has the same illness that I do. It's called ataxia, and they built a statue to commemorate him after he passed away in Rapid City. But I mean, this illness runs in my family, so it's personal that way to me.
The festival featured 4 live performances as well as several vendors offering resources to people with disabilities. People taking a summer stroll along the Big Sioux River in Sioux Falls will notice a much cleaner greenway. Volunteers on Saturday walked the river and filled canoes with any trash they could find. It was a much needed cleanup effort, especially after last week's heavy rainfall.
There's a lot of physical trash, unfortunately, in the Big Sioux River. We live in a very windy state, so oftentimes trash just blows around, and then often when we have big flooding events, a lot of times trash will end up in the river that way as well.
The nonprofit's Friend of the Big Sioux River and Sioux Empire Paddlers organized the cleanup. The volunteers filled up 5 canoes worth of trash, and they found items ranging from cans, tires, and even a porta potty door. The canoes were provided by Camp Leif Erikson. The Minnesota State Patrol says it will be conducting a comprehensive review of safety protocols at the state capitol in St. Paul after security officers removed a man from the Capitol grounds 3 separate times over the weekend. According to a news release, 36-year-old Dominic Terrell Peace was taken into custody without incident last night and is in jail awaiting extradition to Wisconsin for an arrest warrant. This all started late Friday night when an alarm system alerted Capitol security that a man was in the building after hours. Peace was naked when security found him. He was taken to a Twin Cities hospital for a mental evaluation. But Saturday morning, he was back on Capitol grounds, but this time not inside the building. And once again, he was taken to the hospital for an evaluation and released a second time. Investigators say there's no indication that Peace actually broke into the Capitol. The chief of the State Patrol issued a statement last night saying, "We take this situation seriously and are committed to understanding how it occurred, as well as exploring any potential security enhancements at the Capitol." Let's take our first look at the forecast now with meteorologist Brian Karstens in the Storm Center. Good morning, Brian.
All right, good morning, Perry. Good morning, everybody. A hot one today. Our top story in weather, at least for this afternoon. An extreme heat warning is in effect for Sioux Falls and much of our eastern counties. We're talking mid to upper 90s today, close to 100 degrees in Winter and Chamberlain. And those heat index values likely will surpass 105 today in much of southeast South Dakota. So please be alert to that. We do see an end to the heat. We also see some storms in the forecast, and we'll talk more details coming up in just a few minutes.
All right, thank you very much, Brian. Beef prices in the United States are at a historic high right now, due in part to shrinking cattle herds. According to Federal Reserve data, the price of ground beef in June hit an average of a little over $6 per pound nationwide. The South Dakota Cattlemen's Association says there's an online tool that can help you plan ahead called Beef on a Budget.
And whether it is based on, what is available at your grocery store or, what budget you have ready, you can go in, take your recipe and swap for whatever steak you would like to use or whatever cut you are needing to use.
In addition to those budget-friendly recipes on this website, you can get tips for making the most of your beef leftovers. From croissants and Pop-Tarts to turnovers and cinnamon rolls, there's a new roadside stand in Sioux Falls selling all kinds of baked goods. You'll find My Camp Brothers Bakery and Company at the Lake Lorraine Farmers Market each Thursday. The little stand started as a dream 3 little boys had.
So I work for a family-owned business who's been making pastry dough and frozen pastries for 30 years. And so I do all their marketing. And then my boys have been having their pastries for years, but no one in town's got to try them. And so it was actually my kids' idea to start a bakery. They wanted to open a bake stand on the side of our road using the pastries.
On tonight's Eye on KELOLAND, Lauren Solik will tell us more about this little bakery and the life lessons Mom Savannah hopes it teaches for boys. The Canton Car Show for generations features cars, trucks, and motorcycles on display at Jack Fox Park. The hours are 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. There'll also be music, a kids zone, and food trucks. Admission is free. The Empire Mall in Sioux Falls is hosting a back-to-school bash. It's taking place from noon to 2 in the Center Food Court and includes games, crafts, animal encounters, and face painting. The first 150 kids will receive a giveaway bag filled with store coupons and other goodies. The summer concert series at Goodhart State Park in Sioux Falls features Marty DeWitt. The concert starts at 4 p.m. A park entrance license is required. The Sioux Falls Municipal Band performs its grand finale concert of the summer at the Washington Pavilion. The free music starts at 8 p.m. in the Mary W. Summergold Hall. The Canaries baseball team takes on the Lake Country Dockhounds. First pitch at Sioux Falls Stadium is at 4:05. And it's the border battle at Huset's Speedway in Brandon. Gates open at 5, hot laps at 6:30, and the race is at 7:30. Tickets are $20, $10 for students, and free for ages 12 and under. Brian?
All right, turning to weather as we track a hot forecast today. The question, too, will be whether or not we get some storms tonight. And we're going to dive right into, first of all, the first story, which is the heat index. Here's the forecast this afternoon. 100 degrees, feels like temperature in Watertown. Could be looking at 105 there in Huron by 3. The peak number could go higher than that from Huron to Sioux Falls down to Yankton. You can see some of the sample numbers there. Now remember, western South Dakota, it is a drier heat, and so the heat index values are not a headline today. Now, the next question is, are we going to bubble up thunderstorms tonight? And, you know, there's still some scenarios that are pointing toward a couple of things on that. I am going to address that in just a second. I do want to bring back the heat index forecast tomorrow because we're not done. We've got more hundreds from Chamberlain to Mitchell to Yankton. It's an interesting day because not only is there that much heat and humidity, but there's also a little bit of a developing east-southeast wind ahead of a potent cold front. And this is where we get more concerned about tomorrow night because storms, if they can organize themselves, they could be rather rough here in spots again. Here's a look at Futurecast. Now, these are the plain temperatures. So we're forecasting mid-90s Sioux Falls. It's going to feel hotter than that. So watch what happens along the cold front. You can see this evening there could be some thunderstorms if we can break the cap here. Let's kind of focus. You know, you can even see some cells down in northern Nebraska, but probably a little more likely the northeast. And then, of course, you get to the edge of what I would consider to be the cap. Then you're talking west central Minnesota, north of Marshall, and that's where the storms are probably a little more likely. A timeline on this would probably be mid to late evening, and then any storms that do develop can turn to the southeast and become rather strong to severe. So that's why southwest Minnesota is in the slight risk, even portions of eastern South Dakota, which I'll show you that in a moment. How about tomorrow? Well, with the heat around and this warm front that's draped along Highway 14, it gets a little messy here tomorrow evening. You can see a collection of storms around. Where these pop up tomorrow evening, there could be all modes of severe weather, anything from damaging hail, straight line winds, and even a couple of tornadoes are not impossible to get with such a strong cold front coming through. Because remember, our forecast is going to drop from these 90s to the 70s. So this is where that battle takes place, or at least part of it, tomorrow evening. And then we'll kind of source some of those storms through the region. The European model is a little different. It wants to kind of delay maybe some of it and heads it maybe a little farther south. So let's keep an eye on the placement. I do think at this point the Storm Prediction Center did well in putting a broad brush slight risk for much of eastern South Dakota. Tuesday, we could also have some storms. We're kind of shifting gears west river and then in the far south. And so that's going to kind of take us into midweek here. There's a quick look at that severe weather update here for today. Again, it does cover tonight Watertown, Brookings, Marshall. And tomorrow, the map looks like that. So you've got a big chunk of eastern and central South Dakota included with that one. And of course, you'll hear more about it later today on KETLELAND News. We'll finally wrap up here with your 7-day forecast. Once we get through this transition of the weather forecast from hot to cooler, things will land in the 70s to round out the week. You're going to notice a big change in the weather forecast. Aberdeen, too, once we source through some of these bigger storms tomorrow night, I think into early Tuesday, most of the rest of the week is looking drier for the Northeast. And then the next challenge ahead is how to handle Pierre and Rapid City. Thunderstorms looking like they'll probably linger another day or two in Pierre. So Tuesday into Wednesday could be another round in that neck of the woods, maybe by the weekend as well. And I would like to say Rapid City, this is active. We've got several chances of showers and thunderstorms each and every day, and highs are cooling into the 70s through the middle part of the week. That's your forecast. More coverage online at KETLELAND.com.